Welcome to the Magic Mindfulness Podcast, where we sprinkle a little bit of magic into your daily life. I'm your host, Rachel Hupp, and I'm so excited to set out on this mindfulness journey with you. As someone who's experienced the transformative power of mindfulness firsthand, I am here to guide you through the wonders of living a more mindful and joyful life. This podcast is your space for embracing mindfulness and cultivating a deeper connection to yourself and the world around you. Together, let's uncover the magic within and sprinkle a little extra sparkle into your day. Join me as we explore practical tips, inspiring stories, and transformative practices to help you thrive in every aspect of your life. Let's dive in and embrace the magic of mindfulness together. Welcome to another episode of the Magic Mindfulness Podcast. I have a very special guest with us today, Niki Bruce from the Center Yoga Collective in downtown Harrisonburg. So welcome, Niki. Why don't you just introduce yourselves? Tell us a little about yourself.
Thanks, Rachel. It's so good to be here in this space with you. I'm in our big studio that we both teach yoga in. So it's interesting to be sitting here being interviewed by you. I love it. Um, yeah, so it's weird to hear she's the owner of the Center Yoga Collective. It's only been over a little over a year and some months um, since I stepped into this role, and I couldn't be happier. I feel transformed over this past year that I've been here. So super stoked to be here and providing this space, continuing to provide this space that our founder built for us so that we all have a home to come and enjoy together and practice every movement modality we've got in here together. So,
Yes, it's such a wonderful space, and it's so nice that we have this community and this support. So, tell us a little bit about how mindfulness and how yoga in particular have impacted your life, how you've benefited from these practices.
so this is so interesting to me. I'm usually the one asking the question. So when I'm being asked this, the first answer that wants to come to mind is the one that sounds so dramatic and probably cliche, but yoga literally saved my life. Like this studio saved my life. So having the touchstone of that practice to come back to when you're dysregulated or things go awry in life, as they will, and as they certainly have, over the past 3 years globally, right? So I also, I will out myself publicly now on your podcast because I do things scared and I do them anyway. That I got fired from my last role as a social worker. And I am so thankful. And I would never take it back for anything because I landed here. So
And I think it's,
mindfulness made
yes.
all of that possible, tuning into my body, knowing when I was dysregulated, and having to use that mindfulness and hour to hour, minute to minute, right? We can only meet someone as deeply as we've met ourselves. So if I hadn't had to fall back on that and really use that tool, I wouldn't be able to teach it here, right? As effectively, anyway.
Yes, yes. And it's all
So just
about
that.
trusting the flow of life and,
Mm-hmm.
meeting ourselves where we're at. And I also find that mindfulness helps us to embrace each moment as it arrives without necessarily labeling it as good or bad. It is what it
Mm-hmm.
is, and we make our way through it with this mindfulness, with this self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. So I would love to, like, there's something I've always come back to, and I suppose it's pretty Buddhist in nature, but it's like just sit in the stew of discomfort. Just let it, like, stop trying to eject out of your body, you, me, anyone here. Like, can we just notice what's happening and attend to it? And I hate this term reparenting, but it's really what I did, what I had to do to myself over the past year and a half, right? So it's all nervous system regulation. It's all having to be mindful because you have to get yourself better.
Yes, yes. That's so true. And today, these days, I mean, we are just trying to do it all. We're so
Mhm.
overstimulated. We're so, um, we're trying to do it all and plan it all. And maybe talk a little bit about how your thoughts on everything we're all trying to carry, everything we're all trying to do, and how we can get more into that feminine side to fully receive.
Sure. So I know a lot of well, the label of your podcast has all like minds here. So I was going to say a lot of people might consider it woo, but what you touched on coming into that feminine aspect of ourselves, we can even take that term out and just say, can we receive?
Yeah.
Can we receive? I realized that in my past role, it was very, and you can strip the feminine and masculine from it if you want, but it was very masculine in nature. I was doing planning, overseeing all the things for all the people, you know, that's your career. And then you've got family, and then you've got, it all just rolls down, remembering all the birthdays, all the things, right? The pace we're asked to keep is absolutely ridiculous and anti-human, frankly.
Yes.
So remind me your question again. Where were we going with this?
Well, I was just thinking about, from a mindfulness
How do we
perspective,
receive? That's
how
where
do
we're
we
going, right?
navigate this pressure to constantly juggle all of these roles, all of these responsibilities? Because there's that tendency for us to get overwhelmed. There's this tendency for
Right,
us to get burned out. And so, how can we kind of tap into more of that flow, that mindfulness to receive,
right.
to allow
Thank you for
ourselves to
that.
receive?
Right. Thank you for that. So, first, it requires slowing down. How
Yes,
can you do that when you're keeping the pace with everything?
you
Right.
can't.
So, I know some people might be listening to this like, oh, what a luxury to slow down. Um, it was imperative that I slow down. So, I'm speaking from experience. Like, if I hadn't stopped, wasn't forced to stop and regulate myself, um, then I wouldn't be here today. I had to come into that space of less doing control. Let's get real about what the base of that is. It's a sense of control over whatever your life, your role in life, your roles in life for people. Um, I feel like sometimes some of us have to do a little free fall before
Yes.
we can really let go. And I would love to encourage people to not be so scared of those. The cracks are really how the light gets in, and it's how transformation happens. Um, so that leads me to this beautiful space we have here, and allowing people to come in the door and just feel like, okay, like I can receive here, I can turn off here. Nothing is demanded of me here. Like I just show up and care for myself here. So that's back to that like reparenting thing, like minute to minute. Like, what do I need? Am I hungry? Did I eat? Am I hydrated? When we're not well, it comes back to those basics, right?
It does. It
So I
does.
want everyone to walk in and feel like they can be cared for here. Like there's tissues everywhere, there's water everywhere, like just come. You don't even have to take a class. You can sit on the couch and just feel better, but the space is set for you to receive and leave that doing at the door. Um, that's my hope for people when they come in here, because I know how valuable it is. And I know how so many of us, specifically female identifying entrepreneurs and small business owners, just juggle all the balls. And many have ongoing careers at the same time and podcasts on the side and teach like 20 times a week. And it's impossible. Part of my answer to that would also be like, understand it's not possible and stop holding ourselves to these ridiculous standards that we didn't really fully agree to.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I did an experiment with myself a few weeks ago. Actually, no, it was more than that. I wrote down everything I wanted to accomplish in a day, like everything that like I
Is it
needed
like
to
this
do.
long?
It was so long. And so I kept that list until I finished it. It took me over a month to get everything on that list done. And I somehow in my head, I thought it was going to happen in a day. We've got the
Mm-hmm.
Superwoman syndrome, and we
Mm-hmm.
think that we can just power through, we can just push through. But at the end of the day, it's our mindset, it's our bodies, it's our health, our well being that is
Mm-hmm.
suffering. And so many of the people who come to our studio, that might be the only hour out of their day that they have to themselves. And so for you
Mm-hmm.
to be able to offer that space for them to come in and to receive and to slow down, I just think it's so powerful.
It is. And just I would also love people to know that it's just as powerful for us on the other side teaching these classes to co-regulate with them. Like I really started teaching a lot during the pandemic, right? So it was on a screen,
Yeah.
but I left those sessions. I wasn't moving with them, right? I was just directing with them, but I had co-regulated to their breath. to their pace, it's such a gift. It's so mutually beneficial. It's people don't think about the gift that they are to us, and they need to know that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. The community is a gift. Every student who walks in that door is a gift. And the gift of technology that we have these days, that we
Yeah.
were able to maintain a sense of community even through that isolation, even through the pandemic. Our yoga community stayed strong throughout all of that. And I think that it's just such a powerful thing that we were able to keep it going.
It's also a powerful testament to Suzanne.
Yes, she's
Suzanne
amazing.
Perrine, who's the founder of the center, who had this place for 17 years before me. Like none of it. We also, as females, in my little plug of my own, non-professional opinion, I think that we need to understand also whose backs we're standing on a little bit more.
Yes, yes. I think that's important too.
Mm-hmm. And I love it. This community is incredible. Like I used to think that community over competition was a utopian goal that would never happen, and it's happening in real time. Like I want people to know it's out there. And I've seen people move from other states and come here and they immediately get plugged in. And I'm like, why didn't I do that right away? Like
Yes, yes.
I wouldn't have like floundered for so long, right? I didn't feel a sense of community here in Virginia after I moved from downtown Atlanta in 2007 until I landed in teacher training here, and the community was built in, and it was like all the bullshit was cut. Everyone was open-minded, not even like-minded, open-minded enough to
Yes.
accept other points of view, right? We have this thing today where we just have ourselves in our bubbles of who we agree with, right? This
Oh,
is
yes.
very almost like a contemplative studies in thought process kind of kula here, our heart family. So
Yes.
it's
I
a
love
good place to be. People move from out of town, and I'm like, we have everything you need. We have therapists. What do you need? Like, do you need a female care provider? They're right down the road, like it's one stop shop. So it's really cool as an ex social worker to do that job here in a way that doesn't take away from me, but it brings me so much joy. And it's still connecting, it's still services coordination, but there's no words for how different it feels.
Yes. And at this point, I feel like you're able to give from a well of well-being. You're coming from a place
Mm-hmm.
of well-being instead of from a place of depletion. And that's
Mm-hmm.
so important for each and every one of us to recognize that. I know it's easier said than done, but we need to slow down. We need to fill our own cups. We need to make time for ourselves. And then we have this wellspring of energy and positivity that we can share. So when we're slowing down, when we allow ourselves to receive, we have even more to give to the world around us.
And you know what that links me to? I just was recently reading, it was something I heard somewhere, the scale of feelings and frequency. I can't remember the name of the scale in my head, but I know you've seen it, right? So
Yeah.
the lowest would be fear, shame, guilt, and the
Yeah.
highest would be what?
Love.
It's authenticity.
Ah,
Can you believe that? You would think it would be compassion,
yeah.
right? So it's authenticity, and we can't come into that until we're okay. We feel
Yes.
safe, we're regulated. Like you said, we feel well. And you've seen me over the past year and a half. Like I probably look different. I have people tell me, like you, like one of our mutual students the other day was like, I'm just gonna tell you, you've just been looking good.
You're
Like I don't know what
glowing.
you're doing. And I don't, it's just because I'm happy. Like it's just because
Yes.
I removed a depleting monster from my life and started to rebuild myself. So I guess I would say when you're stubborn like me and like a lot of other women I know, you might feel like you can't give up on something. You might feel like, I mean, tenacity is how we get things done a lot in life, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes the lesson is to walk away. And sometimes that's not giving up. Sometimes it's okay to lay the F down and go, I'm tired. Like,
Yes.
I'm not well, and ask for help
Yes.
and
Yes.
say, I'm not okay. Like, it was the most humbling experience I've ever had in the midst of all these experiences in the past year and a half to let people know, like, I don't got it. you know,
And what I found when
it's
that happens
humbling.
is that we have more people than we ever knew we could count on to hold us up
Mm-hmm.
until we get back on our feet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just
Yeah.
so amazing. Like, people want to help each other. Like, if something happened to me and I reached out to you, you would want to help me. And that would be the same. Like, people want to lift each other up. People want to help each other. But we have such a hard time receiving that same support that we would so willingly give to others.
Right. This is advice for me and you, right? Like we
Yeah.
have to reparent ourselves in that way. Like, have I gotten the Reiki treatment lately? Have I been to yoga classes that I'm not teaching lately? Right? It's the basics. Am I sleeping well? You know?
Yes. Yes. I was, for some of my continuing education credits, I took it's a yoga and neuroscience
I saw that and
course.
wanted to take it.
Yeah, so Deepak Chopra did the opening session on yoga, and it was just like he gave the most brilliant and just insightful overview of the history of yoga in the span of about 45 minutes that I've ever heard. But he was basically telling us, how do you know, like, basically he just said, stop throughout the day, periodically check in with yourself and ask yourself these questions. Am I happy? Am I at peace? And if you're not, that's where we have a sign, we have this mindful awareness that we need to make a shift. And so I just thought that I was like, wow, like so simple, but yet so powerful. Am I happy? Do I feel at peace?
It's like a tiny pebble in your shoe, right? Like
Yeah,
stop and pay attention to it before like it becomes a boulder and you break your ankle or you get fired from your job, you know?
right.
Like like maybe we can have some proactivity here instead of everyone feeling like they have to keep up with life. Like, can we keep up with ourselves first and then see how we're feeling for the rest of life, right?
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember who said it, but one of my favorite sayings is that in truth, yoga doesn't take time, it gives time. And I feel like that is so true. And that's why I'm so grateful to see our students show up for themselves, to see our
Mhm.
teachers showing up, for themselves. And, when I first started my yoga teacher training, I was so shy. I never in a million years thought I would ever teach a yoga class. I thought I was doing my teacher training just to like expand my own practice, to build on my own sense of mindfulness. And that yoga teacher training was life changing for me on so many different levels. But I just wanted to check in with you and see, what was your experience? You already said that the yoga teacher training, automatically you were part of this community, and I had that same experience. But how did it change your life or impact
It
you?
really allowed me to ground down in a period of time. So just for our Gen Pop that doesn't know like what yoga teacher training is about, there's so many formats, but ours is done in 9 months, one weekend every month. So I knew that I had that one weekend a month to really focus on myself. And I know how selfish that sounds. And I'll be real about it. Like I had a young son at the time. I still have a young son, but he was younger. Right. It takes from our partners as well. Like it kind of takes a village to get us in this classroom to dedicate one weekend a month. Um, but it was the stable, it was the constant in a world of toxicity and chronic overwhelm and burnout, like compassion fatigue, on call 24/7, and a system that got so run down because I wasn't taking the time to go, am I happy today? I mean, if I did, the answer was no, and there was no choice or time to do anything about it. I just had to plow on,
Right.
right? But here I got to do that. Here I got to really kind of, I would call it therapy, like the deepest dive into yourself. um, you'll see where your physical weaknesses are. You'll see where your physical strengths are. You'll see where your mental strengths and weaknesses are. And your mind will be blown open into a new expanse of possibilities. It's just, it's a little sampling. Like it's again, it's only 9 weekends. And there's so much to teach and learn that it's like a little sampling of a chocolate box. Like you dive into a little bit of everything, and then we're flung out into this world shy, thinking we never want to teach. And then I don't know about for you, but for me, feeling like I didn't have a choice not to.
No, that was exactly the same way. But also, yoga teacher training helped me to retrain my nervous system that it was okay to step outside of my comfort zone. It was
Mhm.
okay to push myself beyond where I thought I could from this space of being shy and not being able to speak in front of people. And then I had everybody there was so supportive. Nobody was judging me. And so
But
it's
didn't you
just,
still want to throw up the first time you got in front of a class?
oh yeah, for
It's
sure.
so hard. But I mean, think of that skill we honed. Like to step in front of a class full of people is not an easy thing. Even if
No.
you love what you're doing and all of it, I would like for this PSA to go out to the world too. Yoga teachers are probably weirder than you are, or weirder than you ever think you could be. I mean, we're here for reasons and we probably healed some things along the way. And that's how we know how to share them with you, right? So when we're up here in front of the class and we're having a bad day, we're human too. Like it's hard to step in front of a group and so incredibly rewarding too. So
Oh
the
yes.
nuances, people think we have it all together and I'm like, we're in it with you. We're learning with you. We're teaching you what we're learning for ourselves. We're
Right.
not gurus. We don't know it all. We're like learning with you. We're holding your hand and going, let's regulate together. Let's get stronger together, right? So that's
Absolutely.
been really cool. I mean, I don't know how people do it without a community like that. I really don't.
No, no. And the level of self awareness and self acceptance and self discovery that we find on our mats, and just this, like you said, authenticity, knowing that it's okay to meet yourself exactly where you are, exactly how you are. How you show up on your mat is going to change from day to day to day. And the mat is always going to be there for you. The practice is always going to be there for you. And it's just
Mhm.
so powerful to know that no matter where we are, we've always got that practice to come back to.
Right. So I want your listeners to also know, like, whether we're coming back to a meditation seat or like an asana movement meditation practice, it doesn't matter. I think that the power, part of the power comes from that just constant return to the mat or the seat or the effort or the intention or the pause. Am I happy? Am I peaceful? Right. It's a muscle. It's just like when we practice gratitude.
Hmm.
I believe you can build mindfulness like a muscle. And I
Yes.
believe we all have an imperative duty to do so. And I know how cheesy it sounds, but when our students come in and we tell them, thank you for attending to yourself today, because you're making a safer place for everyone around you. And therefore, you're making the world a safer place. And I know how cheesy that sounds, but it's true.
Well, it's like the ripple effect, that little drop that drops into the pond and ripples out to affect everybody else around you. You have the choice. Say, I get off work and I'm flustered and I had a crazy busy day. I can go straight home and I can arrive home with my family or pets or whatever in that flustered state. Or on my way home, I can stop by the yoga studio, attend to myself, calm and regulate my nervous system, and go home in a more grounded, centered space. And that's going to ripple out whichever energy I choose, whichever energy I am in. That's what's going to ripple into the world around me. So you're absolutely right.
And that's what we're transmitting. And so I ask people to tune in, like, what does your symphony sound like today? Is it discordant? Is it like out of tune? Can we breathe? Can we get a little bit more in tune? And it all comes back to the self. It's all about returning to your own inner wisdom that we all have within and empowering people to do that and empower themselves to feel better in their own bodies, make their bodies a safe space, because we didn't even get into all that, but there's all that too.
Oh, yes.
Wanting
Oh,
to
yes.
eject out of the body, ways we harm the body, ways we don't care for it. So it sounds simple. Let's make ourselves a safe space, or let's make a safe space to come to. Um, but that little thing starts to shift everything, I think.
I think you're
And
right.
that's what mindfulness practice can be. That's what it's meant to be, to bring you back to your own safe space within. And no one can take that from you.
No, no. And I'm glad that you said it's like a muscle. It's something that gets stronger with time because it is a practice. It's something we come back to over and over and over again.
Mhm.
But the more we practice it, the easier it is to drop back into it. And the more often we find ourselves in that space. So it
Mhm.
is, we find ourselves with as busy as life is so often not in the present moment, worrying about the past or worrying about the future. When we can bring ourselves back to the breath, we can bring ourselves back to the body as many times as we need to. And
Mhm.
that's mindfulness. That's all it really is. It's just coming back to the authentic person you are in the moment you're in right now.
That's it. Mic drop. Like that needs to be a soundbite. That's all it is. And people are like, I can't meditate, I can't sit still. Great, let's walk and meditate. You don't have to sit, right? I mean, there's so many ways to work mindfulness in
That's how
to
I was when I first
householder
started.
life.
Yes.
Yeah. You have to take tiny little bite-sized practices. And we know we are sitting in privileged skin color, in
Yeah.
privileged socioeconomic status, in a yoga studio.
Yeah.
And everyone may not have that, but you know what you do have? Your breath and the ability to stop and value yourself long enough to just put a little stopgap in your day. Like that's all it takes, right?
Yes. Yes. You are absolutely right.
It sounds so easy, but that's why we
That's why
come
we
here, so
practice.
we can remind ourselves.
Yeah. As many times as we need to.
Yeah.
So, for those that may be considering yoga teacher training, how could they get started? I know that the Center Yoga Collective has a yoga teacher training coming up. How can they find out more about that? Or what can they expect from
I
it as
would
far as
encourage
mindfulness?
them to just come see the studio. Like if you're interested, know that this is kind of going to be your touchstone for the next 9 months. I wouldn't want anyone to be anywhere they wouldn't want to be. Like just come. Come to my class, come to a class with Rachel, come to a class with anyone here and just check the vibe out. If it feels safe and like a healing space for you, I think it's a no-brainer. It's 1 week in a month for 9 months. Like I had circled, how many years did you circle the whole wagon on your first yoga teacher training? How many years did you think about it?
Oh my gosh, at least 6 or 7. I couldn't find one that
Mhm.
fit into my schedule, and the 1 week in a month for 9 months fit.
Exactly. Same with me. I was like, it finally, like, I can make this happen. I can't go to Costa Rica for yoga teacher training and stop my life, right? So this one worked. And I would invite anyone, whether you think you're going to teach or not, because I certainly didn't. I know you didn't. Um, I would say probably over half of us didn't do that with the intention to teach.
Yeah.
Um, so to anyone kind of thinking about it, I would say it's a no-brainer. Like I don't listen, I'll tell you something that remember Shane O'Hare?
Yeah.
I haven't talked to him in forever. He moved away. He used to teach here, but I was in yoga teacher training and he was like, "Well, you're going to teach after your training." And I was like, "I don't think so." I was like, "The last thing this world needs is another mediocre yoga teacher of this particular makeup physically, right?" And he was like, "Maybe, but the world doesn't need more yogis." And I was like, that's it. That's it. Like the world does need more people who are working on their own emotional intelligence and arming themselves with these huge toolboxes full of tools to regulate themselves, their loved ones. Like if you don't do it to teach, do it for you, your own healing, so that you can maybe offer that at home or in your workspace or to your animals or just be a more fully optimal functioning human. We didn't arrive with like instruction manuals for this meat suit,
Nope.
right? So we
No.
kind of give you a little bit of like how that might function and how we might have a smoother ride in this meat suit
Yes.
with yoga teacher training.
And what I love is that each and every one of us is unique. Each and every one of us is beautiful in a different way from anybody else. And so, what you bring to the mat, what I bring to the mat, what every single teacher at the studio brings to the mat, every one of us has a different offering. Every one of us has a
Mhm.
different gift. And so, yes, we're all teaching the practice of yoga, but we're teaching it as it comes through our vessel. And so, it's
Mhm.
going to be a different experience with each and every person. So, I think
Mhm.
that's really powerful that you are sharing that, that your light is your light. Nobody else can share it the way you do.
And the world needs it. And when I have imposter syndrome, which is right now and just about every single day that I operate. I mean, seriously, I'm subbing Suzanne's class at 5:45, and I was like, oh, nervous. Like,
Ah,
just keep it real. But I think another thing that yoga teacher training taught me, probably you too, was to show up scared and do it anyway.
yes,
Do
yes.
it anyway. It's okay. Just take the leap.
Well, that's exactly it. I started out thinking that I couldn't teach a single person because I was so shy. And then last year, you gave me the opportunity to teach at Red Wing, where I taught to over 100 people. And I was like, I was nervous. I was scared out of my mind. But I was like, but I know I can do this.
Hmm.
And it was so fun. So,
I'm sorry I couldn't catch it in person. When I taught it the year before, my voice shook the entire time.
ah,
I couldn't regulate it. I was so nervous. So
that's
I
okay.
like to keep it real. Like it's not easy, you know? So I guess what I'm saying is if this Hot Mess Express can do it, anybody else can too.
Yes.
Truly.
Ah, I think
It's
that's
affordable. I think it's a wonderful program. We have some amazing people helping us out. Like there's a million to choose from. There's a million reasons to choose us and not to choose us. Um, I would just ask that the people that are thinking about choosing us would want to make sure that they feel they're worth the commitment.
yes. Yes. And I like that you said that they should come check out the space because I remember when I was there, it felt like my home away from home. Like I was so
Yeah.
comfortable there. We spent so much time there,
Hmm.
but it was definitely like it felt like my second home for a little while just because it was a regular, I was always there.
Yeah. And you show up, you, me, anybody, we meet ourselves on the mat day after day after day, and we start to build the muscle of meeting ourselves and whatever shit show we showed up with, however many personalities are walking with us that day,
Yes.
and we meet them anew every time. So it's kind of like a built-in self-acceptance practice in a way. You meet your body's limitations every day. I always say in class, we're thankful for the level of abilities our bodies are showing up with today
Yep.
because it's different tomorrow.
You're absolutely
Right.
right.
I could go
People
on forever. Like I have chill bumps. Like how many gifts has the practice, this space, Suzanne building the space, how many gifts has it rippled out to the entire community?
Yes, you are right. And I think we could talk about this all day, but we'll go ahead and wrap it
To
up.
wrap it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So what if you had to leave the listeners with one final takeaway, whatever's on your heart right now in this moment, without putting you on the spot, just if anything arises, what would you leave them with?
What would I leave them with? You're worth it. Show up. Show up messy, show up anyway, but just show up and just keep doing that for yourself first and foremost. And the rest just starts to unfold and the universe explodes with potential and possibility. That's it.
I think that's beautiful. Thank
Okay.
you so
Thank you
much.
for having me. This
Yes,
is good chatting.
thanks so much for tuning into the Magic Mindfulness podcast. Until next time, remember to trust yourself, trust the universe, and embrace the magic of mindfulness. And if today's episode resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe so you can receive regular doses of inspiration and practical tips for your mindfulness journey. Be sure to share this episode with a friend who could use a sprinkle of magic in their day. And don't forget to like this episode and leave a comment sharing your thoughts and experiences. Your support means the world to me as I continue spreading the magic of mindfulness. Take care, my friend, and I'll see you next time.